Hello, everyone out there watching. Hopefully, there's more than just our mothers. That would be great. And our fathers, if they watch them. Welcome back to Teachers Talk. This week, you'll see there's four instead of three of us. So we're going to introduce our new speaker. But before we do, we're going to talk about our biggest failure today. So let's start with Cesar. What was your biggest failure today?
My biggest failure today was setting up an assignment today during our Zoom session. And I had a prereq that was assigned earlier, and probably 2/3 of my class did not do it. So I turned from doing the Zoom activity to, hey, it's time to do the assignment that was assigned yesterday or 2 days ago or 3 days ago. So lesson learned. Try not to do Zoom sessions that maybe, I guess the prereqs are not linked to the prereqs. Do something that's going to be organic at the moment. So there it is.
Awesome. I feel for you. Molly, sorry. Let's go Malia, and then we can have Molly introduce herself at the very end there. Malia, what was your biggest failure today?
So my biggest failure was, I can't believe I'm admitting this, I almost didn't show up for my first period class. I was wrapped up in, you know how you get like focused on something on the computer? Are you guys finding this right now, that like you're starting an activity and you just get focused on it and you have to be like hyper focused? So I was trying to set something up for a different class, and fortunately there's a clock on my computer and it's at 8:57, and I thought, oh my gosh, I have a Zoom in 3 minutes. Like literally, I almost didn't show up for my 9 o'clock. That's my biggest fear, is that I'll accidentally miss a Zoom, and it almost happened today.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
Before we introduce Molly, actually, Molly, before we introduce you, we'll get you, me. What was your biggest failure today?
Mine was really similar to Cesar's. I had this reading that the students were supposed to do yesterday or on Tuesday. It was a reading with some like diagrams and then 9 analysis questions. And then the lesson today was 100% based on them having done that. And so I get to my Zoom and only 4 of the 10 kids have done it. And then I didn't really, I was like, well, maybe it'll still work because they'll be in groups. And then I put them in their breakout groups and realized that I had the 4 girls who did the work are all in the same group. And then I had 2 other groups that were just absolutely clueless. They were like, what assignment, what questions, what do you mean talk about this? Like, I don't know what this is. And it was just like, yep. That was my failure.
That's hard.
Yeah.
My greatest failure today did not happen in the classroom. Just a tiny bit of background. We're required to be at our classroom a certain amount of days a week because we do want to use our classroom resources, and show people we're still working hard from our classroom. And my administrator came by my room today and I was not in it. And so she texted me, she's like, where are you? And I said, well, I'm at home because my wife had to go into work last minute. So I'm taking care of our dogs this morning. That was my biggest failure today, but I feel like I capitalized on the moment because I then sent her this meme. So,
I can't believe you sent that to her.
Teachers. Well, we work pretty well together. But teachers, if you're feeling that, now you know how to get away from those administrators. But it was very embarrassing because she's like, you need to tell me when you're not going to be in so we know. And I was just like, we forget in the thick of all the rest of the stuff that we do. So great. We want to introduce Molly Ravitz today. Tell us about yourself, Molly.
So I teach science at Cascade High School with Malia and Cesar. This is my 6th year teaching. I teach bio, integrated physics and chemistry. And then just this year, I'm taking on 3 students who are doing a directed study of AP environmental science. I have the same birthday as Malia.
Oh, nice.
So we bonded when I was a 1st-year teacher, which was my 1st year at Cascade. And I was like pushing a cart around and didn't have a classroom and was pretty aimless and overwhelmed. And Malia kind of like was like, let me help you unofficially. And then we bonded and figured out we're born on the same day. And that's great. So yeah.
I think we should point out, Brian, that like I'm friends with Molly. Molly's friends with Cesar. Cesar's friends with you, and then you're friends with me. So we kind of have this connection between the four of us.
Even though we're only at two different schools, and I feel
Yeah.
completely outgunned.
Whatever.
It's 3-1, but I'm the only one with a beard, so I guess there we go. Now it's 1 versus 3. Fantastic. Our topic today is grading, and there's so many different routes that we could take with grading that we, as teachers, we were just talking about how we could talk forever, and that's not what we want to do. So the question that I would love to see us try to approach today is what has been the hardest part of grading in your remote learning environment? So what has been the hardest part for you with grading in your remote learning environment? And I just want to recall that all of us are doing remote instruction. We have two very different systems. I see students a different amount of times per week that you see students, but it's still the same thing. We don't actually get to meet with our students daily. So whoever wants to start up, what has been the hardest part of grading in this remote learning environment?
I would like to go first. So that's a really hard question to tackle because you can come at it many, many angles, but I'm just going to go straight to the volume of kids doing the actual work, and then the feedback that homework should entail as far as giving feedback to the student from the teacher side. And I just figured out in Canvas, that there's this cool tool where you can kind of draw and make comments on students' work, and then actual comments. And I've done that for a few assignments, and it's time consuming. It's really time consuming on our end. So again, the equity is balancing the grading, giving feedback, to the student to make sure they're doing it correctly. And then again, the volume of students not doing the work. So as far as grading, it's sometimes I tell myself, should we be even grading stuff because we have the volume? But again, that's a question that we can ask ourselves, and we know that that the answer is no. We should still assign work. But from my end, I feel like I'm stuck in a swamp when I start to get into the grading, and it just takes too long providing useful feedback, and it goes from teaching to just being pure clerical stuff of clicking the boxes, sign in the grade, submit, and sometimes that's too much of my day.
Yeah, I want to.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to echo that and then build onto it that in a non-remote environment, you can give immediate feedback, even just like being using proximity near a student who may or may not be doing the work. You can just go stand next to them and they'll start doing the work because you're standing over them and they have no option. And I feel like in the remote world, I'm assigning the less work than I usually would, but I'm grading everything, and I don't grade everything in the normal world. And so because I can't use those tricks of like proximity to get a kid to do work. And so then I'm like, well, I have to assign it, if I want them to take notes on this topic because they're going to have a quiz next week on this topic, and I want to have some accountability for doing the notes, but I can't guarantee they're going to do it unless I assign it as an actual assignment that's graded. And then I end up with like 200 ungraded things in a day that I need to go through and grade and somehow give feedback to, and then, move forward with lessons. It's just like totally overwhelming.
Yeah. I think my grading challenges are tied to kind of like my insecurity about whether or not what I'm providing for my students is actually causing learning to happen. And so am I grading, this is the question that I've been asking myself a lot, is am I grading learning or am I just grading compliance and completion? And because I'm still trying to figure out like how the assessment part of this whole online learning thing, like what is a good assessment right now for social studies. It's interesting because we're all from different content areas, but yeah, what does a good social studies assessment look like? Because I don't think it's necessarily just a multiple choice test. So yeah, so I've just been asking myself a lot of questions about grading. And Cesar, you brought up like the idea, like, should we even be grading at all? And I know that last spring, like when we were with the do no harm policy in Washington State, I wasn't really grading. Like I kind of decided that if students were participating in class and they were staying engaged with me, then that would be what would lead to their learning. But then all of a sudden now we're back, quote unquote, but we're back in like a more structured environment. There's no longer the do no harm policy. And I'm finding that I'm grading a lot more because of what Molly mentioned about how like every single thing that gets turned in, I feel like this need to give it a grade, but I don't know if that's good for kids. And I don't know if that's good for learning. So that's where I start to question what I'm doing. This is one of the things that I don't have the answers to. I only have lots of questions about grading.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, Brian, I want you to talk, but to like, that's what's happening is there are kids that are not doing the work and then they're failing. And I'm like, you wouldn't be failing in a normal setting, but because this is really my only way to see if you are engaged right now, you're clearly not, and I don't know what to do other than contact you a million times a day and give you, no credit because you didn't do it. So yeah, it's totally, sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm with you. I'm torn on the topic overall because I mean it is our job, and I think it's our duty to make sure that students are prepared for very specific things. I mean, like we have Common Core standards that we have to get our kids to meet, and that's the task that we've been given as public school employees in Washington State. And so my dad was a superintendent, and he would always bring the conversation with me back to, if you're not teaching kids what is on the test, then you're doing them a disservice and you're not doing your job. So that's super important to me, but it's also super important that I'm teaching kids how to increase their skills and love to learn and test themselves and, have that growth mindset as well. And they're both super important. And I think one is more important than the other, but I have been hired to do the other one more than I've been hired to do the first one. So there's a lot pushing back on each other in that situation for all of us, for sure. I know that I started out putting a lot of assignments down so that I could put grades in because, to be completely honest, I put grades in because some kids need those grades to feel like they are justified in going to school and that they are valuable. And I put those grades in so that teachers know that their kids have something to do and that I'm doing my job. And it really forces me to take a look at grading and how much of grading that still meets what grading was implemented for, and what do we use grading for other than to determine if kids can make it into a college, and do we still even need it for that? So those are tough situations that always come up with grading. Nice. Man, we killed it. We tackled it today. We're just going to stop it right there. That's a win.
I thought you were going to end it, so that's I'm turning red. I was about to start. Are you still recording me right now?
Yes, I am.